Hello, welcome back. Welcome back to Food as Medicine, where medicine meets the menu. I'm Chef Dennis Arbizu, and today I wanted to talk a little bit more about spices. Given that it's that time of the year where many look towards the holidays, if you celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving that just went by, or even New Year's. It's a time of the year where people become fascinated with food, festive flavor. And one spice in particular is cinnamon. That's right, cinnamon. You know, what comes to mind when we think of cinnamon? Cookies, apples, pie, cinnamon oatmeal raisin, apple pie, cinnamon ice cream. If you haven't had that, it's pretty good. But cinnamon has been around for centuries, and it's used in many, many cultures, and not just for food. It's actually been utilized over the years for its medicinal properties. So that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit more today, here on Food as Medicine, is how something so simple as cinnamon can utilize its natural properties to improve your overall health. So how many of you have thought about, is there more than one type of cinnamon? Is it the one that you get in the grocery store? Is that the only one? Do you get it whole? Do you get it ground? Have you ever noticed that some is softer than the other? Or even some have a distinct smell, aroma. Here in the United States, the most common variety of cinnamon you'll probably find in the stores is called cinnamon Cassia. And it's probably the most utilized type of cinnamon, known for its spicy and boldness into the cinnamon family. For many outside of the States, let's just say in Latin America, Mexico, we've heard the word canela, right? Which is the Spanish word for cinnamon, the universal Spanish word for cinnamon. Or canela is what's known as beer and cinnamon, and it's considered the true cinnamon. It's a bit milder on the spiciness. It's a bit sweeter, but it has a very high compound called corium. And this compound is something that is utilized in many medicinal applications. Now, there's definitely more types of cinnamon, like cinnamon Bermani, each with its own different type of flavor profile, if you may. And the thing is that not only does cinnamon, this spice, go towards sweet desserts, breakfasty, cereals, oatmeal, but it can be utilized in savory dishes as well. So one thing that I just kind of want to point out is cinnamon doesn't necessarily have to just be for the kitchen. It can be looked at as your overall health for its various properties that we'll go into a little bit more. So let's take a step back though. Over time, history has uncovered that cinnamon has been around for thousands of years, and it's not only been used as a garnish or a flavoring ingredient, aroma, if you may. During the Egyptian times, it was used to embalm pharaohs. So in other words, they were wrapped in cinnamon. Not to mention, during the era of spice trade, cinnamon was considered to be a very valuable spice, a gold, if you may. It had significant value that traded from Asia. Now, move here to what is it, 2024, right? I think the majority of cinnamon is exported through Asia, China leading the way, Vietnam, Indonesia. What's interesting though, and I have to dig a little bit more into it, is Spain has also gotten into the cinnamon trade. For the last 2-3 years, their exports have gone over by 300%. So I would have thought that cinnamon has such a demand or love for, within food. Well, it maybe do. Now, so let's talk a little bit more about where medicine meets the menu, in this case, medicine being cinnamon. So what are the medicinal properties of cinnamon? Cinnamon contains these powerful compounds. One is known as formaldehyde, and the other is acidic, actually. It's cinnamic acid. Now, why should you care? Both of these compounds are acknowledged and researched and celebrated for their antimicrobial properties, antioxidants, and even being anti-inflammatory. And I know that in previous episodes, we've talked about a little bit more about inflammation and what it does to the body and your overall health. What I found interesting though, and maybe when Dr. Wayne gets back, talk more about how cinnamon actually has been utilized and continues to be researched into how it can help regulate blood sugar levels, which is amazing for individuals that are suffering from diabetes. And even the latest research, most current research, has found some correlations between how cinnamon and its properties, right, cinnamonic acid and formaldehyde, can help manage and fight those plaques that eventually lead to Alzheimer's. So in other words, it's a good way to promote cognitive and brain health. Now, of course, this is still some ongoing research. However, as the research is promising, you have to ask yourself, if I start incorporating cinnamon into my diet more often, and what can these properties do for me? They can only help promote your positive well-being versus just thinking about it later on in life. So now let's talk about the menu part. So how can you incorporate cinnamon and its medicinal properties into food? Earlier I mentioned about cookies, desserts, think of chai, tea. For many, we use cinnamon as just a type of tea. Just get a couple cinnamon sticks, put them in some water, boil them very slow, let it steep, and you could sweeten it to your liking. I like to put a little bit of lemon juice or lime juice onto the cinnamon sticks themselves before I add water. I feel like it kind of helps release a little bit more of that acid within it, and you can mix and match however you would like. Think of apple cider. We think of these days, and for many, that's what comes to mind. For Latin America, Mexico, big thing with cinnamon, canela, ponche, which is kind of that you could call it like a festive punch, right? For those that haven't ever had any. And I'm sure if you go to your local Mexican market, Latin American market, you'll probably find either recipes, ingredients, or just the ponche itself. So where can you use cinnamon for savory dishes, ones that are not sweet? One thing, these days that you find is a lot of sweet potato. So anything that is also a root vegetable, carrots, if you may, are also very good. Both sweet potato and carrots have high levels of natural sugar. So for those that may be diabetic, I would say this particular simple dish may not be the best in terms of your dietary choices, but roasting carrots, roasting sweet potatoes, it only enhances that sweetness, that natural sugar. Sprinkle a little bit of ground cinnamon on top of that, some olive oil, salt, and you get a very spicy and sweet and festive side dish. Now, when I think of cinnamon, I think of the Middle East, right? I think of Moroccan food, Indian food, Mexican food. So one thing where cinnamon definitely is very prevalent is in Morocco. So I think of a tangy, lamb. For those that don't know what a tangy is, it's kind of like a clay pot with a little conical cone-looking lid that is utilized as you simmer something. The steam goes up and it condenses and it essentially rains inside of the pot and helps maintain moisture. So the Moroccan tangy, it adds some cinnamon, balance the sweetness with a little bit of dried apricots, some couscous, and voila, you have a very hearty dish, especially for those cold days, but very well rounded actually. Now, what about breakfast? This is where sometimes for me it's a hard one because I'm not a breakfast person, but I do like some breakfasty foods just later in the day. One that I like is cold oats. So for many, you think of oats, you think of oatmeal raisin cookies. So really good. But also just grabbing any kind of oat, steel cut oats, rolled oats, and any type of base as a milk. So say whether it's whole milk, skim milk, almond milk, soy milk, there's oat milk, but if you're going to be eating oatmeal, cashew milk, whatever your preference is, leave that soaking overnight. But I don't know, throw in a cinnamon stick in there as well. Let it perfume your oats. And in the morning, you can mix it in with additional ground cinnamon, some honey, chia seeds, berries, fruit. And it's just a great way to start your day. And essentially, half of the work was done just overnight. Now, is too much cinnamon a bad thing? Well, that depends. There are types of cinnamon that have higher levels of curcumin, and I think one of the things that I talked about before is that everything is great in moderation. Moderation is key. So as long as you're not eating pounds of cinnamon per day, you should be fine, right? So We always say sometimes, though, too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. But my thing is that what might be good for you may not be good for the person next to you. So always keep that in mind when you start looking at some dietary changes. I always recommend talk to your doctor, talk to your healthcare professional, especially if you are on restringent diets, because you never know. Maybe there is some chemical compound within a natural product that may have some kind of reaction with another antibiotic you might be taking, another type of medicine, insulin, whatever it is. So always make sure you consult with your doctor. I think one of the things that I just want everyone to take care of with cinnamon is that it's not just used for aroma. It's not just used just this time of the year in the fall. It's a great spice to have that if you incorporate it in your dietary regimen can have significant impacts over time. One of the last things I like to talk about is how cinnamon is used so much in just natural tea. You utilize it for a common cold, common flu. Some of this formaldehyde and cinnamonic acid has been recognized for its bacterial properties and how to fight fungus. Go figure. They look at back in the old days, thousands and thousands of years, how they would actually use cinnamon to preserve food. So it's kind of remarkable to think about that, how just this piece of bark or stick that you may have lying in your cupboard somewhere has had such tremendous impact over the lifetime and evolution of humanity. So in the coming days, as we end the year and many of us get together with family to celebrate the holidays, or even just to spend time with each other, when you see something the next time, think about all the cultural history that comes behind it and all the potential it has within it. So I think with that today can wrap up a little bit, and I'll put some simple recipes, some of the things that we talked about today in the links. And if you try them, let me know what you think. If it's something that you'd like to see more of, leave a comment below. So wishing you all well, and thank you for joining.